Welcome to the truth you've been avoiding. You think she left you, walked away, abandoned everything you had together, but did she? Or was she never indeed yours to begin with? Too many men feel shattered when a woman moves on, believing they lost something that belonged to them. But here's the harsh reality: she wasn't yours. She was only ever a reflection of your attachments, your desires. What if I told you that the real power isn't chasing, fixing, or understanding her, but stepping back and realizing she was never the prize? The moment you detach, you win. The moment you stop playing their game, you take control. Stay with me until the end of this video, because once you see through the illusion, you'll never look at loss the same way again. 1. The illusion of loss. Why she left. She didn't leave because you weren't good enough. She left because she no longer saw something worth discovering in you. Women are naturally drawn to men who keep them engaged, evoke curiosity, and possess an unpredictability element that keeps their minds working. But when a man becomes too familiar, too predictable, he loses the very thing that made her desire him in the first place. She didn't abandon you, she abandoned the version of you that stopped evolving. One of the most common mistakes men make is believing she left for someone better, someone more prosperous, attractive, or successful. This assumption feeds into insecurities and makes men feel they need to compete. But in reality, the new man in her life isn't necessarily better. He is simply different. He represents something unknown, a new challenge, an unexplored mystery. A checklist of qualities alone does not drive women. Emotions drive them, and nothing stirs emotions more than uncertainty. The moment a man becomes entirely predictable, he also becomes emotionally replaceable. This is why chasing her is a losing game. When a man begs for another chance, tries to convince her of his worth, or competes with the new guy, he only reinforces the idea that she made the right decision in leaving. Desperation confirms her belief that she outgrew him. But when a man refuses to chase, when he detaches and ceases to seek validation, he changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, he is no longer left behind, he is walking away, and that shift is powerful. Women are drawn to what they cannot fully grasp, to what keeps them questioning. When a man stops trying to convince her, she wonders if she misjudged him. Attraction is built on tension, and tension thrives in uncertainty. When a man becomes an open book, when nothing is left to uncover, attraction inevitably fades. This is not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding a fundamental truth. People do not abandon what they deeply value. If she genuinely saw you as irreplaceable, she wouldn't have left. But leaving felt like the only logical choice if she saw you as stagnant, someone with nothing new to offer. The key is not in trying to bring her back, it is in transformation, not for her, but for yourself. Most men, when faced with heartbreak, remain stuck in the past. They replay memories, analyze mistakes, and hope that they can somehow undo what has already been done by staying the same. But this mindset only cements their place as the man she left. The only way to shift the narrative is to become someone she no longer recognizes, not by pretending, but by genuinely evolving. Women are drawn to change. They are drawn to growth. A man who remains stagnant will always be left behind, but a man who continually evolves forces people to see him differently. The goal is not to make her regret leaving. The goal is to become so compelling that she questions why she ever thought she understood you in the first place. The irony is that by the time she notices, you won't care anymore, because by then you will have written a new chapter that no longer includes her. 2. Emotional detachment, the key to power in relationships. In the intricate dance of male-female dynamics, power is rarely distributed through overt displays of dominance. Instead, it is a psychological game where control is subtly transferred based on emotional reactions. The moment a man allows himself to be mentally consumed by a woman's absence, constantly checking her social media, replaying past conversations in his head, wondering what he did wrong, or anxiously waiting for her to reach out, he has unknowingly surrendered power. His obsession grants her a silent authority over his emotions, giving her validation at the expense of his inner peace. She may not even be consciously aware of this power, yet she wields it effortlessly. His turmoil becomes proof of her significance, while he diminishes in stature, reduced to a man ruled by his longing rather than his sense of self. Women instinctively test men, not always intentionally, but because they seek strength. A man who is emotionally unstable, reactive, or needy triggers a deep-seated sense of dissatisfaction in a woman's psyche. Even if she once felt attracted to him, that attraction fades when she senses his dependency. A woman may flirt with the idea of leaving, pull away to see how he responds, or subtly withhold affection, and in those moments his reaction determines everything. If he panics, seeks reassurance, or desperately tries to pull her back in, she feels an unspoken confirmation that he needs her more than she needs him. This imbalance robs him of respect in her eyes. But if he remains indifferent, unfazed by her withdrawal, something shifts. Instead of being the one pursued, she finds herself questioning. True power in a relationship belongs to the man who feels nothing, not in a literal sense, but in the way he carries himself with emotional discipline. He does not seek validation or crumble in the face of absence or uncertainty. Emotional detachment is not about shutting down feelings or avoiding connection. It is about refusing to let external circumstances dictate inner stability. When a man operates from a place of self-assurance, his value is not dependent on whether a woman stays or leaves. He does not chase, does not beg, and does not make the mistake of over-investing in someone who is not equally invested in him. Instead, he stands firm, knowing his worth remains intact, regardless of her actions. Imagine a man who, upon sensing a woman's growing distance, does not react with fear or desperation, but with an unwavering sense of calm. He does not send an emotional message, does not try to remind her of their connection, and does not drown in over-analysis. He simply continues living as if her presence or absence makes no significant difference in his life. This is the kind of man who commands respect, because the moment he refuses to react, the script flips. The woman who once assumed she had him wrapped around her finger now questions her choices. Why isn't he chasing? Why doesn't he seem affected? Has she lost him? Suddenly, the emotional weight shifts from him to her. Emotions are like storms, powerful, unpredictable, and destructive only if you allow them to control you. Just as a skilled sailor does not panic in rough waters, a man must learn to navigate relationships with composure. A woman's withdrawal, silence, or mixed signals are nothing more than waves meant to test the strength of his emotional foundation. The weak man crumbles, reacting impulsively in an attempt to regain control. The strong man, however, remains still, unmoved by temporary turbulence. He understands that detachment is not about pretending to be indifferent, but genuinely not allowing external forces to disrupt his inner peace. The key to emotional mastery is simple in theory but difficult in practice. Stop reacting. Stop seeking answers from someone who is testing your ability to remain grounded. Stop feeding her a sense of validation by proving how much you care. The less you react, the more control you reclaim. Over time, this indifference creates a new dynamic where she wonders if she made a mistake by pulling away. The human mind is wired to desire what is uncertain, and nothing unsettles a woman more than a man who refuses to chase her. Ultimately, the man who holds power is not trying to convince a woman to stay, nor is he the one who anxiously dissects every interaction, searching for a way to fix what is broken. The man who walks away with quiet confidence, unaffected by the uncertainty, drives lesser men to desperation. Reclaim control of your mind, because without emotional discipline you are not a man in control, you are merely a captive of your feelings. 3. The magnetic power of indifference. Attraction is not built through effort, but through absence. When a man stops caring, removes his attention, and detaches from an outcome, he becomes exponentially more desirable. Women, like all humans, are wired to want what feels uncertain. When a man pulls away, his perceived value increases because his attention is no longer guaranteed. It is no longer something she can assume is hers to control. Instead, it becomes something she has to earn. The psychological principle behind this is simple. People crave what is slipping away. He becomes predictable when a man bombards a woman with attention, showers her with messages, or reacts to every subtle cue she drops. Predictability is the opposite of intrigue. She knows exactly where she stands in his mind, and that certainty robs the interaction of any emotional charge. But when that same man withdraws and ceases to react, the power dynamic shifts. Now she is the one left wondering. She questions what changed, why his focus is elsewhere, and whether she misjudged his interest. This uncertainty ignites attraction in a way that words never could. Women expect men to react. It is almost instinctual. When she sends a vague text, posts something suggestive on social media, or hints at a new love interest, she waits to see how he responds. Most men fail this test immediately. They take the bait, react emotionally, and, in doing so, confirm her control. She learns that she can pull his attention back simply, reassuring herself that he is still within reach. This makes her feel powerful, but it also makes him less attractive. There is no mystery or reason for her to chase, because she already knows he is waiting. The man who understands attraction through indifference does something different. He does nothing. He does not respond to the vague messages. He does not react to the calculated social media posts. He does not feed into the game. His silence becomes his weapon, creating a vacuum that forces her to feel his absence. At first she may not notice, but as time passes, the weight of his non-responsent begins to settle in. Doubt creeps in. Has she lost her hold over him? Is he moving on? Was he never as invested as she assumed? Suddenly the dynamic has flipped, and the same woman who once expected to be chased now craves the validation she once took for granted. Most men struggle with this concept because they believe attraction is built through presence, action, and effort. But in reality, true power comes from the ability to step away. A man who masters the art of indifference does not play by the unspoken rules of emotional dependence. He does not chase. He does not seek reassurance. He understands that his absence speaks louder than any words ever could. A woman may test, push, or create situations designed to provoke a reaction, but the most potent response is always no response. Attraction is rooted in uncertainty. When a woman feels that a man is slipping away, she is forced to reassess her feelings. Indifference triggers this response more effectively than any amount of affection or persuasion ever could. This is not about manipulation, but understanding a fundamental truth of human nature. People value what they are unsure of. They are drawn to what they cannot fully grasp. When a man stops giving away his attention so freely, he becomes a prize rather than a participant in a game he never needed to play. Silence is not a weakness. It is the ultimate display of strength. A man who does not react is a man who is in control. He does not need to prove his worth and does not fear losing someone who is not equally invested. Ultimately, it is never the man who begs for attention who holds power. It is the man who remains unmoved, whose silence forces her to question everything. 4. The power of absence. How disappearing reshapes attraction. The human mind is restless when faced with uncertainty. It craves resolution, struggles with unanswered questions, and obsesses over what it cannot grasp. This psychological truth is the foundation of power in relationships. A woman moves on quickly when she believes she still has access to you, when she assumes that at any moment she could reach you and you would respond that she remains in your orbit, even if only distantly. But the moment that assumption is shattered, when she is forced to confront the reality that you are truly gone, a void is created. That void haunts her thoughts, lingers in the corners of her mind, and gnaws at her with a single, unresolved question. Why hasn't he reached out? Absence is powerful because it forces a shift in perception. When a woman believes she controls your presence, she feels no need to reconsider her decisions. She can move forward unchallenged, secure in the knowledge that, should she ever wish to, she could effortlessly pull you back in. But a new dynamic emerges when that illusion is broken, and she realizes she no longer holds that power. Doubt sets in. The certainty she once felt about moving on begins to waver. She replays moments, wondering if she misjudged you or overestimated her ability to replace you. This is the nature of human psychology. We want what feels uncertain. We crave what we cannot fully possess. Most men fail in this because they lack the discipline to disappear entirely. They leave digital breadcrumbs, likes, comments, subtle interactions designed to remind her of their presence. They believe they are keeping the door open, maintaining a connection, staying on her radar just enough to be remembered. But what they fail to realize is that these gestures reveal emotional weakness. Every small interaction signals they are still lingering, seeking validation, and afraid to be forgotten. This destroys mystery. It reassures her that she still holds control and has not truly lost anything. And so, instead of being drawn back in, she remains unmoved. The correct strategy is absolute disappearance. No messages, no responses, no silent attempts to remain in her periphery, to create an emotional vacuum where she once found validation, to let her feel for the first time what it means to be without your presence entirely. It is in this silence that her mind begins to turn against her. She starts to wonder if she made the right choice. She questions why you have not reacted the way most men do. She expects a message, a sign of lingering attachment. And when none comes, uncertainty takes hold. What was once confidence becomes curiosity, then doubt and regret. The outcome is inevitable. A woman who once assumed she could walk away without consequence begins to feel the weight of her decision. The absence that she once welcomed becomes the very thing that unsettles her. She wonders what changed, why you did not fight for her, and whether she ever honestly had the control she believed she did. The shift is subtle but powerful, and it only occurs when a man has the discipline to leave no trace. Because in the end, The man who disappears completely is the man who is never honestly forgotten. 5. Mastering emotional control. The key to unshakable resilience. A man's greatest strength is not in his ability to fight, argue, or dominate, but in his ability to control his emotions. The difference between a man who commands respect and one who loses himself after a failed relationship is simple: emotional mastery. When a man allows heartbreak to consume him, when he spirals into self-doubt, regret, or desperation, he reveals a fundamental weakness. His sense of self was never rooted in his own identity, but in the presence of a woman, and the moment she leaves, he crumbles. A man who lacks control over his emotions is at the mercy of external circumstances. How others treat him is dictated by his confidence, sense of worth, and future. This is why weak men allow heartbreak to define them. They drown in sorrow, replay memories, and seek closure, hoping that somehow, by understanding why she left, they can find a way to heal. But healing does not come from answers. It comes from detachment. On the other hand, the strong man understands that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. He does not deny his emotions, nor does he suppress them. Instead, he channels them into personal growth. He recognizes that loss, rejection, and betrayal are all part of the human experience, but do not dictate his value. While weak men seek validation from the past, hoping to reclaim something lost, strong men look ahead, using their pain to build an even more fabulous version of themselves. Instead of asking why she left, he asks himself how he can become so powerful and composed that the loss no longer affects him. A woman expects a man to react when she leaves. She expects sorrow, anger, or attempts to win her back. She expects emotional instability because that is what most men provide. But she must reconsider when met with silence, calmness, and complete detachment. Did she misjudge his value? Was she not as vital to him as she believed? Nothing unsettles a woman more than a man who does not seem broken by her absence. Because emotional composure is not just a sign of strength, it is a direct challenge to her perception of her importance. When a man remains unshaken, he forces her to confront a reality she did not anticipate. Perhaps she was the one who lost something valuable. Control over one's emotions is the highest form of power in life. Men who lack it find themselves at the mercy of relationships, chasing love, seeking validation, and suffering unnecessarily. But men who master it become untouchable. They walk away without hesitation, build without regret, and command respect than any grand romantic gesture or any desperate attempt to fix what is broken. Because at the core of attraction lies an undeniable truth. A woman cannot respect a man who has lost control over himself. Master yourself, because your resilience defines your value. The man who can endure heartbreak without losing himself is the man who ultimately wins. 6. Becoming a high-value man, the path to true power. Most men spend their lives chasing women, believing that love, attention, and validation from a woman will complete them. But the men who command respect, admiration, and attraction are the ones who chase something far more significant: their purpose. When a man shifts his focus away from trying to win a woman back and instead dedicates himself to self-mastery, he steps into his true potential. Women are not drawn to men who beg for their presence. They are drawn to men who become so compelling and self-sufficient that their absence is barely noticed. The average man lets a woman's approval define his worth. He waits for her text, checks if she's online, and reads into every signal she sends. His sense of confidence fluctuates based on her level of interest, but a man of value does not operate this way. His identity is not tied to whether she stays or leaves. His validation does not come from a fleeting romance, but from the empire he is building within himself. When he stops placing her at the center of his existence, he reclaims the power he never should have given away. The transformation into a high-value man is not about pretending to be indifferent or playing games. It is about genuine evolution. It starts with the body. A man who cares for himself physically exudes discipline, strength, and self-respect. His posture changes, energy shifts, and he moves through the world differently. Women sense this immediately. There is an undeniable allure to a man who is fit, strong, and capable, because physical mastery reflects inner discipline. But strength without intellect is incomplete. A high-value man sharpens his mind relentlessly. He reads, learns, and expands his understanding of the world. He does not waste hours drowning in distractions or meaningless pursuits. Instead, he feeds his intellect, knowing that knowledge and wisdom elevate his presence. The way he speaks, the way he thinks, the way he carries himself, all of it becomes refined. A man who is constantly growing mentally becomes impossible to ignore. However, a man's purpose is more important than the body or the mind. The highest value men wake up every day with a mission greater than themselves. They are not waiting for a text, hoping for a second chance, or reminiscing about what was lost. They are too busy building something meaningful. Whether it is a business, a craft, a legacy, or an art form, their time is consumed by something that ignites them. And in that pursuit, women naturally radiate confidence and focus that women find magnetic. A man with a purpose does not chase, because his energy is already directed towards something far more critical. Ironically, the moment a man stops needing a woman's validation is often when she begins to crave his attention again. She starts to wonder why he is no longer reacting, why he seems so unaffected, and why his life appears to have only improved without her. This is human nature. People are drawn to what they cannot fully possess. But by the time she realizes this, something fundamental has changed. He no longer needs her interest to feel whole. Her presence or absence has become irrelevant, not because he is bitter or resentful, but because he has evolved into a version of himself that no longer depends on her approval. The actual outcome of this transformation is not just that a man becomes desirable, but that he becomes respected. Other men admire his discipline and drive. Women are naturally pulled toward his energy. He is not simply another man hoping to be chosen. He is the prize. And the most powerful realization is that once he reaches this point, he no longer cares whether she sees his value. He has already won. 7. When she notices, but it's too late. In the beginning, she feels a sense of relief. The weight of the relationship is gone, and she embraces the space she's created for herself. At first, it feels liberating. She tells herself she made the right choice, that walking away was necessary, and that she was outgrowing the connection. She may even expect you to chase, reach out to fix things, and prove that she was important enough to fight for. But then something happens that she didn't anticipate. Silence. Your lack of reaction unsettles her. Days turn into weeks, and yet you do not break. You do not plead. You do not seek closure. You do not check in to see how she's doing. She scrolls through her phone, expecting to see your name pop up. It doesn't. She posts vaguely emotional on social media, hoping you'll take the bait. You don't. She starts wondering, did you ever really care? Have you moved on? Did she make a mistake? The human mind is wired to question what it cannot predict, and the very absence of your response forces her to confront the one possibility she never considered, that you might be better off without her. This is the turning point. Doubt creeps in, slowly at first, then all at once. She begins to replay the relationship in her head, sifting through memories not with the confidence of someone who walked away, but with the anxiety of someone who might have miscalculated. Every moment she once took for granted now feels significant. The way you used to look at her, the way you laughed at her jokes, the way you made her think effortlessly secure. These were things she assumed she could always return to. But now she isn't sure. She starts to test the waters. A casual message, a comment on an old photo, a sudden appearance in places where she knows you might be. None of this is genuine. It's not an attempt to rebuild, but a way to reassure herself that she still holds power, that if she wanted to, she could pull you back in, that she could still command your attention. But the moment you engage and acknowledge her attempt, you give that power back. She's not reaching out because she genuinely wants you. She's reaching out because she wants to know that she still has the option. And that is why you do nothing. No response, no reaction, no validation, not out of bitterness or spite, but because you have evolved beyond the need for her approval. When she left, she assumed you would crumble. Instead, you grew. The version of you she once knew no longer exists because you have transformed into a man who no longer ties his worth to her presence. She regrets leaving, but the difference now is that you no longer care. The power she once had over your emotions has dissolved, and for the first time she is the one left wondering. This is the ultimate realization, not that she wants you back, but that you have outgrown the need for her entirely, and that is a far more significant loss than she ever anticipated. Never go back. The future ahead of you is far more valuable than anything she could ever offer in return. 8. The silent victory, when you no longer care. The most significant victory in any relationship is not winning her back or proving your worth. It is reaching a point where her presence or absence no longer affects you. Most men spend their lives seeking validation from women, measuring their success by a woman's approval, attention, or willingness to stay. But the moment you detach from this need, the game changes. She no longer controls you because you have entirely removed yourself from the battlefield. She wanted control over your emotions, but when you refuse to react, you reclaim every ounce of power that once belonged to her. Women are drawn to emotional responses not because they enjoy hurting men, but because control gives them a sense of security. The moment a man shows emotional vulnerability, whether through frustration, neediness, or desperate attempts to fix things, he confirms that she still influences him. This validation fuels her ego, reinforcing the idea that she is the prize, the one dictating the terms. But a strange shift occurs when a man stops caring and no longer reacts. She begins to question her impact. Doubt creeps in. Did she misjudge his feelings? Has he moved on? Why isn't he chasing? What she once took for granted, the power to affect his emotional state, is now slipping away. This is the irony of emotional detachment. When she realizes what she lost, you no longer want her. The days of overanalyzing her words, waiting for her messages, or feeling unsettled by her distance are gone. She is no longer the center of your thoughts. You have outgrown the need for her validation, and in doing so you have freed yourself from her influence. This is the ultimate win, not because you manipulated her into wanting you back, but because you genuinely stopped caring whether she did or not. Emotional mastery makes you immune to manipulation. No woman can dictate your values or mind when you develop an unshakable internal foundation. You become a self-sufficient man who derives his sense of worth from within, not external circumstances. And this kind of man is rare. While others crumble at the first sign of rejection, you remain steady, indifferent to whether she stays or leaves. Ironically, this indifference draws women back, not out of love, but out of an innate desire to regain the power they once had over them. But by then it is too late. When you indeed win, you do not look back. There is no need for closure, resentment, or desire to prove anything. You walk away without hesitation, knowing no woman will ever hold power over you again. The battle was never about her, it was always about you. And now, with internal mastery in place, you control your destiny. The world bends to the man who bends for no one. 9. The Stoic Path. Becoming the man no one can replace. A man's most incredible love story is not with a woman, nor with a fleeting romance that rises and falls like the tide. It is with himself. The journey of his becoming and the relentless pursuit of self-mastery that defines his existence. Too many men seek completion in others, searching for relationship validation, believing that happiness is something to be given rather than something to be built. This illusion is the very thing that keeps them trapped. Slaves to circumstance, victims of emotional turbulence, lost in a world where their sense of worth depends on the affections of another. But a man who understands the Stoic path knows better. He knows that nothing external should dictate his happiness, and that no person, event, or relationship holds the power to shake the foundation of who he is. To walk the Stoic path is to build an internal world so unshakable that no rejection, no loss, and no betrayal can fracture the core of your being. It is to accept that the only thing you truly control is yourself, your mind, emotions, and actions. The world will test you, people will disappoint you, and relationships will end. But none of these should have the power to break you. The weak man blames the world for his suffering, cursing fate for the women who leave, the friends who betray, and the opportunities that slip through his fingers. The strong man understands that suffering is a choice, and pain is inevitable, but dwelling in it is a decision. There is a reason why the most powerful, most respected, and most desired men carry themselves with quiet confidence. Those who do not seek approval or reassurance. Those who live with purpose rather than desperation. A man who has mastered himself is a man no one can replace. Women sense it. The world respects it. There is an undeniable gravity to a man who does not chase, who does not need, who does not cling. He moves with certainty, detached from the need for validation content within himself. He does not fall apart when things do not go his way, because his happiness never depends on those things. Every man has a choice. He can live as a prisoner to his emotions, constantly reacting and seeking something outside himself to fill the void within. Or he can take ownership of his life, discipline his mind, and step into the role of the creator rather than the victim. The path to self-mastery is not easy. It requires sacrifice. It demands the abandonment of weakness, the willingness to let go of illusions, and the courage to stand alone if necessary. But the reward is emotional freedom, mental clarity, an existence dictated by purpose rather than fleeting desires. The man who walks this path becomes untouchable. He is not heartless, but he is unshaken. He is not cold, but he is controlled. He does not suppress his emotions, but refuses to let them rule him. He is the master of his fate, the architect of his future. While others drift aimlessly, swayed by external forces, he moves forward with unwavering focus. In doing so, he becomes the man who cannot be ignored, commands respect, and stands apart. Embrace the Stoic path. Your future is yours to shape. Winning isn't about getting her back. It's about reaching a point where you no longer care if she returns. She wanted control over your emotions, but the moment you stop seeking, stop waiting, and truly move on, you take back your power. This was never about her. It was always about you. Too many men waste time chasing closure or revenge, but true peace comes from evolving beyond the need for either. She feels the loss when she realizes you've disappeared, not as a tactic, but as a result of your transformation. But by then it no longer matters. The man she left is gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and completely indifferent. The real lesson: the strongest man is the one who walks away, focuses on his growth, and never looks back. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever walked away and realized it was the best decision? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you find value in this video. See you in the next one.